On 7th February 2012, sections of the police and military staged a mutiny. They were controlled and encouraged by the former dictator Maumoon Abdul Gayoom and his allies, alongside Islamic extremists keen to re-establish the old order. On that day, hardline elements in the police with close links to the dictatorship went on the rampage, beating up citizens, storming the national TV and radio stations, and protesting in the heart of the capital. Islamic extremists broke into the National Museum and smashed the 12th century statues of Buddha, which dated from the Maldives' pre-Islamic history. This was the equivalent of the Taliban blowing up the Bamiyan Buddhas in Afghanistan, or the radicals in Mali sacking the medieval archives of Timbuktu.
The special thing about the Maldives is that it is actually one of the first places where you can actually see Islam and democracy actually working its way, just up until the coup. And I know you have strong viewpoints about this, and strong viewpoints about Wahhabism spreading in the region. Could you try to explain, maybe to a wondering Western public, the true facts of what is actually happening? The fight between progressive and reactionaries, or if you would put it in more lyrical terms, the fight between the darkness and the light, please.
Thank you. Very often the Maldives is a prelude to what happens in the Middle East. It happens first in the Maldives, and then it happens in bigger Islamic societies. We were able to build political parties, galvanize our people to political activism. You must understand Hosni Mubarak and President Gayoom went to university together. So these are in very many senses like the 1500s European kingdoms where sisters are always married to each other on all sorts of places. So you have rulers connected to each other through all sorts of mechanisms. So once one of them fall, it's very often that the dominoes start falling after that. We were able to galvanize our people to political activism, form political parties, get the constitution amended, and we did not topple the government, but we wanted to have an election. Now, if you look at what's now happening in Egypt, the good judge there yesterday has decided to pass sentence saying that Mr. Mubarak was scotch-free and nothing wrong with, he didn't shoot anyone, apparently he did nothing. And you think, that this is going to create stability in the new Egypt? No, it's not. I am sure that this big country is going the same line, in the same direction as the Maldives has gone. And I am certain that they are going to have a military coup, as we have had. And I'm also certain that before the gunpowder actually explodes, the United States and big countries are going to recognize the new regime. And I'm sure, again, we will go into this long argument of a free and fair election in Egypt. I'm not suggesting that I have the answers for this. I'm just merely making an observation that there is a blueprint in the Maldives, and you must use that to understand what's happening elsewhere in similar cultures and in similar societies. We may be small, but we represent a lot of Middle Eastern or Islamic cultures. Now, on radical Islam and the Wahhabism that is spreading throughout the Middle East and now East Asia, it's very, very, very worrying. Now, this is not Islam necessarily, but more Hijaz or Saudi thinking, their culture. And it is an idea to impose that culture upon all Islamic societies. And I'm afraid that the spread of that thinking is very, very rapid. Partly because we haven't stood up and given an alternative narrative. Other more liberal Muslims haven't come out with a proper narrative that can counter the radical Islamic viewpoint. Now, what the radicals are doing, they have an answer for everything, anything. You could ring up in the middle of the night and say, Sheikh, I'm not able to sleep. And then the Sheikh would give you a hadith and a revelation on what the Prophet did and what the God has prescribed on sleeping in the middle of the night. And then you go back to sleep. We don't have a helpline. We don't have an alternative narrative. And I think it's so important that we come up with an alternative narrative, a liberal version of Islam, or actual version of Islam. I wouldn't argue that it's a liberal version of Islam. Radical Islam is spreading like wildfire even in Sri Lanka. And this is happening all over the world, all over the East Asia, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, even India and Sri Lanka. And because Maldives is a very Islamic country, apparently, it is able to play a very important role in the spread of these religious ideas. And similarly, I believe that with proper democracy in the Maldives, we can play a very important role as a counter to the Reformation, or rather the Jesuits have to come up quickly.